Steven Universe and all associated images are property of Cartoon Network, Rebecca Sugar, and any and all other respective owners. I don't know them all. All footage in this video has been used for the purpose of critique parody under fair use. Please support the official release. So there I am, sitting there eating my leftover Thai food and watching Deadpool for like the 17th time, and something occurs to me. That Deadpool as a character is actually reminding me of someone, which really shouldn't happen very often. And no, his costume does not remind me of Spider-Man's. I mean, it does, but that's not what I'm talking about in this particular instance. And of course, Deadpool is a very crude character, and that crudeness isn't what is reminding me of this other character either. No, it's all of the breaking of the fourth wall. The fact that Deadpool clearly knows that he is a fictional character, and what type of medium it is that he exists in. That particular aspect of his character reminds me of Sardonyx. And before anyone gets up in arms, this is not a joke episode. I know I did kind of a joke episode last week, but that is not what this is. I'm very serious about this. Is it possible that Sardonyx knows that her world, the world in which she exists, is a fictional one? Because I think it is. I think it is possible, mind you. I don't think it's necessarily true, but I have managed to find some evidence that supports the idea that it's possible, and I want to share it with you today. The first thing I considered when I initially put this theory idea together before I'd written anything out for it was that there are really two things standing in the way of this theory being true. The first being that if Sardonyx knew the world was fictional, that Garnet and Pearl then should also know. The second being that there's really no way that Sardonyx could find out that the world that she lives in is fictional, within the rules of the universe itself. I mean, obviously the writers could write her as a character who just knows that the world is fictional, but I want to explain how this is possible in-universe following that universe's rules. I want to prove that she not only knows that she lives in a fictional universe, but that she knows because it's one of her gem abilities, or at least prove that it's possible. So let's look at these two things and see if we can discredit either of them. Bonus points if we can discredit both. And let's start with the idea that the fusion's components should know everything that the fusion does. Well, this actually reminded me of something that occurred back in Cry for Help. Even though Pearl was lying to Garnet to get her to fuse into Sardonyx over and over again, Garnet never knew. She never picked up on what was going on. And there are two reasons why this could have occurred. Pearl could have just kept it from Sardonyx. She could have just held that knowledge back, and then Garnet just never really gleaned it from being part of Sardonyx. But there is another possibility. If we look at Opal in Giant Woman, it does seem like a fusion just kind of automatically has all of the knowledge of its components. But that doesn't mean that when the fusion separates again, that knowledge goes to each component. Knowledge specific to a specific component of the fusion is not retained by other components. So while Sardonyx may have known that Pearl was lying to Garnet, there's no reason to assume that Garnet would have known as well. Remember, the fusion is a third person. Yeah, the component minds are in there, but the fusion is her own person. And that made me wonder, is it possible for the fusion, and only the fusion, to have knowledge that isn't retained by the components when they defuse? And this may seem ludicrous to you, but we've actually seen evidence of this in the show all over the place. Let's look at Smoky Quartz and Sugilite as examples. They are experts with a yo-yo and a flail respectively, and yet it doesn't seem like Amethyst and Steven retain the knowledge to use a yo-yo that proficiently, or that Amethyst and Garnet retain the ability to use a flail so proficiently. The ability to wield their weapons with the skill with which they wield them is knowledge specific to the fusions. And we see the same thing with Sardonyx and her Warhammer. Yes, Pearl has proficiency with long-handled weapons. Yes, Garnet has proficiency with her gauntlets. And yes, either one of them could probably do a lot of damage swinging a Warhammer around, but that doesn't mean that they have the knowledge necessary to be as proficient as Sardonyx is. She has knowledge of how that weapon is used that the others don't. So isn't it possible that she gleans information about the world through a gem power that she possesses, that neither Pearl nor Garnet possesses, and therefore they don't get to retain that information when they defuse? If that is the case though, then what is this power? It couldn't just be future vision, or else Garnet would know that she lived in a fictional world as well. And there has been no indication that she does. However, we have seen an interesting ability of Pearl's at least once in the series. I say at least once because we can only really confirm that it's happened once. But we see when Pearl interfaces with the hand ship, she seems to process and immediately analyze and understand huge amounts of information about the ship's operations in seconds. What if some combination of this ability of Pearl's and Garnet's future vision allows Sardonyx to see more futures at once and understand them than Garnet ever possibly could, that Sapphire ever possibly could, that any other future vision gem possibly could? And using only in-universe rules, she has been able to use this information to glean that her universe is a fictional one, using various context clues or by seeing the end of the story. It could explain why her design is so odd, with a rotating torso and her weird eyes that seem to be attached to her glasses rather than her face. The moment she first formed, she realized that her world wasn't what it seemed to be, and so the form that she ended up with was one that breaks the rules of that universe. And look at Sardonyx's room. A room that is literally designed to allow her to break the fourth wall. And yes, she's breaking the fourth wall within the context of that room, at least most of the time. Looking at Know Your Fusion, the episode where most of the evidence for this theory comes from, we see that some of Sardonyx's fourth wall breaks are definitely her talking to her invisible audience. But some of them have to be for us. They have to be fourth wall breaks intended for us. The annotation in her video footage courtesy of Cartoon Network, her reference to Nicki Minaj voicing Sugilite, those are fourth wall jokes. Fourth wall jokes that are intended for us to pick up on. They aren't meant for her invisible audience. And they aren't meant for Smokey either. Smokey laughs along with her, but doesn't really seem to understand what she's talking about. This suggests, if not outright tells us, that Sardonyx has at least some instinctual knowledge that she exists within a fictional universe. It really just depends on how willing you are to believe the evidence. And you know me, I'm always willing to believe literally any amount of evidence. So let's assume that this is true. Let's assume that she does have knowledge that she exists within a fictional world. Is it possible for a character who knows that their world is fictional to still be invested in the well-being of the world and care about the people in it? And the answer is yes, it absolutely is. Even if she knows that her actions are being dictated by writers, from her perspective, they're still her actions. Even though she knows that the actions of her friends and family are being decided by writers, from her perspective, they're still the actions of people that she knows and cares about. And if her world ends, she still ceases to exist. All the things that she knows, all the things that she feels, all of her knowledge and experience, it's gone. Knowing that you live in a fictional universe is the same thing as a person believing in fate or destiny. They're going to continue on with their life and do their best not to croak. Remember, I'm suggesting that Sardonyx was able to glean that her universe is fictional, not that she was able to gain all knowledge of that universe and everything that will ever occur in it. It's not like she's one of the writers. It is still possible for her to care about the world in which she lives. It is still possible for her to be surprised by what happens in it. It is still possible for her to be written like any other character, just that this particular character has the knowledge that their universe is fictional as one of their driving forces, as one of their key character elements. Let's look at Deadpool as another example. He has a knowledge of whatever sort of media he is being portrayed in. If he's in a comic book, he knows he's in a comic book. If he's in a movie, he knows he's in a movie. He is capable of breaking the fourth wall. And yet he is still invested in what's happening around him because that's still his world and he still has to live in it. But he doesn't take things seriously. He knows that he exists in a fiction, and as long as people like him, he's going to continue to exist. So he cracks jokes and he does absurd things, and he only really ever gets serious when the situation doesn't give him a choice. And in a lot of ways that also describes Sardonyx. I don't know if this is true. It could very well not be true. Those fourth wall breaks in Know Your Fusion could just be Easter eggs for the fans, one-time fourth wall jokes to make us laugh, but they could also be indications of something more, and I do love talking about the possibility of something more, so there you go. Guys, what did you think of this theory? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below. Either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later. Do you have a theory idea or merely a musing about the show that you'd like me to discuss? You can head on over to my Facebook page and send me a message detailing your ideas, and if I find them interesting enough, I'll be sure to respond. Or you could head on over to my Tumblr page and send me an ask. If it's not something that I've covered before, I'll be sure to answer. If you are on Facebook or Tumblr, I also recommend that you like and or follow me there as well to keep up to date on all of my content as well as any supplementary content that I might post on either of those sites. And if you know anyone on Facebook or Tumblr who might find my content interesting, please share it with them. I'd really appreciate it.